What is up, everybody? My name is Jacob Willem, and I'm here with the Closers Confessions, and I'm here to talk about my experience with Jeremy Miner and 7th Level's sales coaching program. So I got some sticky notes here, I got some notes here for my topics I wanted to talk about with you guys. So basically, I'll go about this in a few ways. I'll talk about the sales process. I'll talk about what I liked and what I didn't like about the experience, and I'm not going to say people's names or go into extreme details to spoil it for future people who are trying to make a decision on this, because the results are going to vary, and I haven't done it in so long. I'm sure the offer changes quite a bit, and then I'm going to go into whether it's worth it. Okay, so first I will start with how I got into the program and how they sold me into it. So a little background: I had just gotten laid off from a in-home sales company doing windows and doors. So I was basically doing inbound only, windows and doors. They wouldn't let us do any outbound. It was a terrible offer, really terrible. The management was terrible. The sales process was god awful. The guy who was doing it, one of the guys who was doing absolutely amazing on a sales team, less than 10 people, was doing absolutely nothing from the process that the company actually trained you in. And I didn't really know anything about the world of sales until I'd done this training. So I thought you just follow the script that whatever company gives you, and you're just gonna make the money they say. I didn't realize there was quality to offers and this and that, and I just really didn't understand that. So anyway, I hit rock bottom. I lost a ton of money, and I had gone back to doing personal training, which I still do to this day, and I still like personal training. I had thought I was really good at sales, then I realized I was really not good at sales. So I was doing some of watching Jeremy Miner's YouTube channel, and I was implementing a lot of the things that he goes over, the free stuff. I was a dabbler, as he likes to call it, and it was working, and I was getting the emotional responses from my prospects in the gym. But selling personal training is extremely easy, especially, not that I have some crazy physique or anything, but I'm 6'4", I'm a good looking dude, and I have a six pack. And when you're in the gym, when Susan and Steve come in, 60 years old, I've never been in shape ever. It's just, you have a ton of natural authority, and you really don't have to have any skills at all to sell that. Especially at the company I work for. It is an absolutely incredible company. Their marketing is extremely good. They make a ton of money. It's an extremely good company to work for, but naturally, the better the marketing is, the better the front end of the product is, the less that you can get paid. So you really can't make a living over six figures there, but you can make a good living making, between 70 and 95 grand a year at that gym and that company, which is everywhere in the United States. Anyway, so I was looking to move up. So I had bought Jeremy's Black Book of Questions. Now, once again, at this point, I basically had no idea of how sales processes work or any of that other sort of stuff. Like, really had no intimate knowledge at all. I just know, I didn't even know what the word inbound meant, didn't know what the word outbound meant. I didn't even know those were words, right? So I bought his Black Book of Questions, and I was just hoping to with the money I had, spend a little bit and get some, better results out of it so I can make my life easier. So I could eventually save enough money and then try my hand at, doing sales again. And, maybe like 30 minutes after I bought the book, I was at a barber. I got a call. I didn't answer it. I thought it was like a robot calling me. And then, one of their closers, it wasn't an SDR, it was a closer, had texted me, and I responded back, and I was like, is this a real person texting me? He was like, he made some joke, and he was like, yeah, it's a real person. I was like, what? This is crazy. And so, he outbounded me. I clearly showed up on the lead list, and, speed to lead, just like Matt Ryder says, is one of the most important things that, you can have in a sales process. So he outbounded me, he booked a sales call for me, and, this guy, self-reported, was making $15K a month doing, fitness sales in the past, and then he got to this, which I'm assuming, with how good of a rep he was and how on top of the game he was to outbound someone 30 minutes after they buy the front end product. He's probably making 25 plus, if I had to guess, and he was an amazing rep. Not once during the entire call did I realize I was in a sales call, or did it ever feel like a sales call. I mean, I knew he was gonna tell me pricing and a decision was gonna be made, and it didn't feel like I was at a sales call. He was just that good. He, asked me the consequence question, as Jeremy puts, and basically the way he asked it, how well, it put me in this like extremely dark despair immediately, where my pain was extremely high, and he would have had to monumentally fuck up to stop that from being a sale. He was such a good rep, and he touched my soul with his consequence question. But anyway, so I ended up paying a little over $8,000 for 3 months of group coaching and a year access to Jeremy's course, okay? And then later on, I bought the Inner Circle, which is the top level of his training program, because there's 3 different levels. So I paid $21,000 altogether for the training, okay? So $21,000, and that was 6 months of way more intimate training. So I'll go into kind of what I liked and what I didn't like. And at the time, Jeremy's, entire personality, his YouTube and everything was blowing up. I'm sure they were scaling like insane at that moment. So I think their fulfillment was a little behind because the calls were so insanely packed for how many of them were. You could barely talk to the coaches. Now, just listening to the calls provided so much value, and it still was worth it, even just listening. And I rarely ever even talked to anyone during my entire time doing this. Okay, so their fulfillment was definitely having trouble. I don't know how it is now. I just know how it was, because their calls were way too packed. Not enough calls. They needed to probably have double the amount of calls for you to get the quality, actual Q&A that you needed as a rep. So that was the way it was before. And here's another negative. We're starting off with negatives. So there's no mindset coaching. It's all skills when, confidence and overcoming insecurities is one of the biggest things that's important for a sales rep. Really, there's none of that in there. It's just you going in and analyzing words, going over psychology, really just skills only, words only, stuff like that, which for a certain character, right, for a certain avatar is exactly what they need. For others, like me, who was terrible at sales, terrible. Like we're talking, very bad, not knowing anything about how to create my own leads, outbound, servicing inbound leads correctly, triage. I needed more mindset as well as skills, which is, we'll come to that back later. But let's talk about the good news. So once again, like I said, the coaches are very smart. One of the guys, had made $70,000 in a month doing their cold calling coach at the time. People that know exactly what they're doing, excellent, smart people. They're on top of it. They're very sharp. They're very knowledgeable about the questions you ask. They're going to give good answers. They're going to dive deep. They're going to know exactly what you're looking for with questions and what you need with, for yourself and for your prospects. So the coaches are really good. With the top tier training, the one-on-one coaches that you work with are also very smart. And then you also get to work with Jeremy himself, right? So you get to do a couple calls with Jeremy a week, I think, not one-on-one, but in a group setting. And obviously, Jeremy is Jeremy, so it's clearly going to go well. So the coaches are very good. And then the connections that you make are extremely valuable. So basically, once you get in that community, you can get any job. You can get an SDR, 50,000 job offers, 50,000 inbound job offers, because companies want guys who take sales very seriously to the point where they'll spend all this money, and they'll hire you, right? I had access to 1 million different job offers, and I had got put in touch with Caden Sanchez, and I met him, and he's been just an amazing, overall like boss and mentor to myself for so long that I met him within the program, because I had 50,000 people telling me, oh, you don't like your current job, you need to go talk to Caden. Okay, so I did, and I've been working for him for coming up on 2 years now, close to 2 years working for him. So the connections are insane. You will never not have a job. You will always have somewhere to go in that community. It's just absolutely incredible. And then I learned so much about what sales is, the terminology, the jargon, just deep psychological things in people and how people respond to this versus that, and why everyone says every word they say. Like, the skills you learn and the knowledge you gain is well worth over the amount of money I paid. So there's a lot of positives and then downsides too, but everything has downsides. But overall, that's kind of what you're gonna get. You're getting a lot of group coaching, you are getting your one-on-one session, things like that. It's mostly Q&A, right? In those group calls for the mid-tier plan that I bought for $8,000. So, that's just the way it is, not necessarily a bad thing. But that's kind of like the overview of the program now. Let's talk about results. Okay, so move on to the next topic here, results. So since I had stopped the program, I have had 1 month where I've made over 10 grand in commissions from all my incomes. So, but I'm not on like an incredibly high ticket offer. I'm on like it's a high ticket offer, but it's like, you're selling anywhere from like $500 to, typically $3,500 in that range. That's like a typical ticket price for what you're selling on a fitness offer. It's a good offer. There's everything is going to go through different, ups and downs, but I had done insurance really, I went from being complete dog shit to good. So I would say I'm good. I'm sure if there's another offer that's way higher ticket, I could make 10K consistently, but definitely not a 15K a month guy. Definitely not a 20K a month guy. Not there yet. Making six figures is, right for me now is not much of an object, right? I could realistically make six figures every year for the rest of my life now. In the very lowest, probably, we're talking like 1 to 110. You know what I'm saying? So that's where my skills are now. I went from pretty much terrible to that. So but I would consider that like mid-level. So I'm like probably mid-level right now. You make 10K once, right? I'm dabbling. I'm sure in the next few months, I'll get to a consistent 10 to 15 every single month. I'm just on that trajectory. But once I was done with the program, I still sucked. My commission still sucked and I was still just doing terribly. Now I was on an extremely hard offer, on a fitness offer. Now it's just not extremely hard anymore. It's like medium because the offer got better. But I was on extremely hard one, notorious. Apparently it's notorious for being extremely hard. Anyway, I had a ton of insecurities to where I couldn't act a certain way or push people to do things or be a good sales rep because of up here. And that was where there was no training on that. And that's where a program like Andy Elliott's is probably really good because probably the vast majority of everything he does is up here, right? I just felt like I couldn't direct people. I couldn't lead people because I was afraid of not being liked. And I had to tackle those deep-rooted insecurities. And once I did, I overcame them. And that's when I started making commissions. And that's when I started, making sales consistently and getting my skill set up quite a bit. And so that was after about 6 months after I ended the high tier inner circle program that I started basically becoming good because I had learned so many skills. I had learned all the knowledge. I had everything. I had all the connections and then overcame my mental insecurities. And so I went to the next level, right? Because once I had no insecurities, all that knowledge and skill that I had, I was actually able to apply. So that's extremely important. And, we can thank, Caden's mentorship and what he has learned from Chase Hughes to balance it out and really give the full package. So I would say, if you are I'll get to that in a second, but basically to put it very simply, I went from completely terrible to good or all right, where I make, I can make low six figures pretty easily, probably for the rest of my life if I wanted. Okay. Now, in the end, so as far as my overall view, was it worth it? I paid 21 grand, definitely worth it. I've paid all that off. I've made more than that, well over that in return, which is good. And now I'm on a trajectory where I don't need to pay for anything else, where I will eventually become, a $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 rep, commission a month rep. I'm on that trajectory, right? So the payoff takes time, but it's getting there, right? So definitely worth it. The connections alone are worth it. And then the training that you get from those connections and the good offers are, just absolutely incredible, right? So what I think is important to note is that it would be a much better program if they had even 1 or 2 calls a week working on mindset, overcoming insecurities, and gave you some sort of like Chase Hughes like worksheet or something to follow so you could overcome that. Because just like with anything in life, you have to overcome insecurities to get good. The biggest thing is that a lot of men struggle with is, getting girls, right? You're afraid to even talk to them. Why are we afraid to talk to girls for 10 seconds? Deep-rooted insecurities. We don't want to not be liked, things like that, okay? Now, I would say the training is much better for someone who is already all right at sales to get to very good, because they don't have insecurity. So they're just strictly applying, the new skills and knowledge. I have no doubt in my mind that that is the perfect avatar. Someone that is terrible, it's not as good for, but I had no other option. It was either I could get taught by someone on how to do it and open my mind up, or I would never have known. There's no way to just know. No one's just gonna come knock on my door and tell me exactly what I need to do, or I can just try and get lucky, right? And that's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. So you really don't have any other option. You need to pay for help, right, from somebody. And I trusted Jeremy and his company the most. But I would say the perfect avatar is definitely someone who's already good. Like if you work commission only and you can make $5,000 a month, that's not like a good income, obviously, but you're not terrible to where you make nothing like me, basically. That would be a perfect avatar. Okay, so overall, I think it's a very good program, and I think they're just missing one thing. I'm sure now fulfillment is much better. Now that I'm sure that meteoric rise that I participated in has slowed down a bit. As far as I'm sure they're still going up, but I'm sure it's like a little slower now and more manageable for the company. So overall, I'd say it's really good, and I benefited from it. I would do it a million times over again. The money was worth it, and the trajectory that my life is on now, when I did that sales call, has changed wildly. Like, I will never forget that sales call. I will never forget the guy's name who did the call with me. That was a turning point in my life, like an extreme turning point. Like I am down a completely different path that I want to be on, just because that guy was a good rep who was able to close me, right? Just think about that. And then you can apply that to your own sales too. That's legitimately what we're doing to some of these people's lives, right? And my life's never going to be the same in a positive way. I've gone up in all directions in my entire life just due to that one sales call, just because I decided to buy the black book of questions and I got outbounded by him. And anyway, but that's it. Really all I have to say on that. I'm excited for my future, and maybe I'll talk about this more in the future. So, all right, peace, guys.